Hey, Randy Roth here. Hey, Jesus, Peter, and Paul all warned us about the deception surrounding his return. Jesus said, take heed that no man deceive you. That's Matthew 24:4. Paul tells us that teachers come and teach that our gathering is at hand before the man of perdition is revealed. That's 2 Thessalonians 2:2. So if he warns us of those teachers, then why is that a very prominent teaching today, that our gathering is at hand, it's imminent before the man of perdition, the Antichrist, is revealed? Peter also tells us in 2 Peter 3:10 through 18, he tells us that, first he says that Jesus comes like a thief in the night when the heavens are destroyed with a great noise. So if Jesus comes like a thief in the night when the heavens are destroyed with a great noise, how can there be a rapture 7 years prior to the heavens being destroyed? Because that would create a countdown of 7 years to when the heavens would be destroyed, and therefore Jesus can no longer come like a thief in the night. And then Peter goes on to say that unlearned individuals twist what Paul has to say about it. That's interesting to me that he says that they twist what Paul has to say, as they do all of Scripture, and then he calls them wicked and tells us not to fall from our own steadfastness. There's only one teaching out there that suggests that comes from Paul's ideal, and we're told that Paul revealed the rapture, that Jesus knew nothing about it, and it's revealed by Paul. And that ideal comes from 1 Corinthians 15, where Paul says, I show you a mystery. But that's not where the passage starts in verse 51. If you look at verse 42, he calls the event the resurrection of the dead. And when he shows us a mystery, it's how people are changed at the event he calls the resurrection of the dead. Is the resurrection of the dead something new that Paul revealed? Absolutely not. Jesus and Martha talked about it concerning Lazarus in John 11, when Martha says that, oh, I know he will rise at the last day. And Jesus, rises him then. They knew about it. It was a concept that was well taught. Martha knew about it. She wasn't, the priest or the Sadducee and had to, like Sadducees didn't believe in the resurrection of the dead. So a Pharisee who taught that there was a resurrection, she wasn't one of the big scholars. No, she understood that Lazarus would rise at the last day. Why? Well, because it's as old as Job. Job says in Job 14:12 that man dies and does not rise again until the heavens are destroyed. Sound familiar? Back to 2 Peter 3:11. Jesus comes as a thief in the night when the heavens are destroyed. So here we have this element of surprise, that Jesus comes like a thief in the night when the heavens are destroyed. And yet constantly we're told that the element of surprise is on the rapture. No man knows the day or the hour. Let's look at that passage. Matthew 24, verse 35 and 36, or Mark 13, verse 31 and 32, where Jesus declares, heaven and earth will pass away, and of that day, he says, depending on which passage you look at, he says, but my words will not pass away. And of that day, which day? Well, the day the heavens are destroyed with a great noise. That day, no man knows the day or the hour except for my Father who is in heaven. And yet we're constantly lied to and told, no man knows the day or the hour of the rapture. It's like, where does the term rapture come from? Was it around for the last 2,000 years? No. The term rapture was first coined in 1600. And it comes from Latin rapturo, rapio, however you want to pronounce Latin. I don't speak of it. But it comes from this term in Latin where it's used in 1 Thessalonians 4, and it's used in Acts 23, and it's used, in Revelation 12. It's used to talk about Philip being translated from one place to another. And this term is first coined into English in 1600, and it's rapture. And it first meant kidnapped and raped. It comes after its sister term in 1400, which is rape, rapturo, rape, rapture. It comes from the same term. It's the root word of rape, and it first meant kidnapped and raped. So how does that turn into this glorious event? That's the very opposite of a glorious event, because rape and rapture first showed a taking by force, kidnapping, raping. It's not something that is, you want to have happen to you. Well, it wasn't until the 1800s when John Nelson Darby needed terms to separate and show division in a duality of Christ's return that he believed in. See, he didn't believe that Christ returned once. He said, well, Christ has to return twice. And so there's this really itchy ear doctrine that you don't have to go through tribulation like Jesus promises. You will, in this world, you will have tribulation. John 16:33. But be of good cheer, I have overcome the world. So Jesus also tells us that the stony soil believers have no mindset for tribulation and persecution. That's Mark 4:18. I mean, the concept is that they just simply don't have the mindset, the heart, when it comes, Jesus says, they immediately stumble. So if you look at the dangers and say, hey, look, well, what's the danger of believing in a post-trib rapture versus a pre-trib rapture? Well, if you have a post-trib and you got it wrong, well, you're in for a pleasant surprise. If you believe in a pre-trib rapture, well, there's a lot that you got to be concerned with. One, you now believe the opposite of Christ, who directly states that he comes after the tribulation. That's Matthew 24, verse 29 through 31. So now you're no longer believing Christ, and you must believe Jesus to be saved. And two, you're believing in this concept that there's a coming prior to tribulation. What is the mock and scoff that Peter says that in last days there will be mockers and scoffers? And they will say what? Where is the promise of his coming? You see, first you have to believe that there's a promise of his coming. That's not when the heavens are destroyed with a great noise. Because, you can't mock and scoff somebody by saying, well, where is the promise of his coming, when you understand that it doesn't happen until the heavens are destroyed. But if you actually believe that he's coming prior to that, and you get confronted with the mark of the beast or the man of perdition, which we most believe that he comes with the mark of the beast. And so you have this event that you're now confronted with, the mark of the beast, and having to worship the beast and follow the Antichrist. It's like, Christ was supposed to come prior. Where is the promise of his coming? Do you understand where the mock and scoff now comes from? It comes from the stony soil believers who have no mindset for tribulation and persecution. And when it comes, they will immediately stumble. We saw this historically back in the 1930s. When communist China took over China, the Chinese Christians, they ran for the hills. They went into hiding, and a lot of them were caught. And a lot of them, the stony soil ones, turned in their brethren for a lighter sentence. Because when tribulation and persecution come, Jesus promises they will immediately stumble. So what happens with the man of perdition? What's in context with the man of perdition being revealed? The great falling away. Wow. It's not a rapture. It's the falling away of people who are foolish virgins. What's with the foolish virgins? They simply weren't preppers. They actually thought that his return was imminent. So why bring a vessel to fill their lamps? It's not that their lamp didn't have any oil, because it says that their lamps ran out. They simply didn't bring a vessel, a gas can, to fill it up. It doesn't say, oh, well, there's all this other stuff in there. Why wouldn't they bring a vessel to fill it up? Well, because they didn't believe Jesus in the previous chapter, who directly told them that he comes after the tribulation of those days. You see, it's very pertinent that we get it right. I mean, Peter says that we don't. Well, we fall into the camp of the wicked. Jesus says, it's the camp of the stony soil believers. It's the camp of the foolish virgins. So why do we have this rapture ideal that doesn't exist in Scripture? Well, it's because Jesus, Peter, and Paul all warned us about the great deception, the deception surrounding his return. It's really simple, guys. If Jesus says something, that he comes after the tribulation, why do you have to conjure up another event to suggest something different? No scripture even remotely offers a rapture prior to tribulation. All right, hope this is helpful. Take care. God bless.